Camera 4, camera 1, camera 2, camera 5. Hi, I'm Kelly. I don't know if there's an intro for that, but I'm Kelly. What has improv taught me about myself? It's interesting, like when you first start, you're kind of being dropped into this somewhat like unknown space, and as you go through the classes and as you improvise with people, because I came from stand-up, and stand-up, it's all pre-written. You can kind of like organize yourself and how you are going to present yourself before you go out into the crowd and do your bits. But then improv, it's just in the moment, like what's coming up, how do you insert yourself into a scene, how do you start a scene. And as I did it, I realized more about who I was, how I would hang back initially, what kinds of characters I would take on, were they big, were they small? And it's like, I think a lot of improvisers would say this, that it's weirdly a lot like therapy. You go through that process and you learn a lot about yourself through it, and it's really just made me, I think, not only a better improviser and better comedian, just to like sort of accept the situation as it happens, but also a better person. I've noticed, like in my own work environment, I'm like 100 times more confident. And then when I'm splashed into these situations where I don't really have much control, I have more of a roll with it sort of feeling, like, well, sometimes you don't get to control what you are put into, but it's how you like deal with it in the moment. What could improv use more of? So, improv needs more places to do improv. I think that's like maybe the biggest thing. Especially coming from stand-up, like you could do several stand-up open mics in one night and really kind of like hone your craft from what, like you could work on like 3 to 5 minute bits. You could then go off to another place and work on another set of 3 to 5 minute bits. And by the end of the night, you've maybe done like 30, 40 minutes of stand-up. But with improv, there's just not that many places to do improv. Like luckily with Curious, there's multiple different shows and workshops and jams that you can go to, but those aren't on the same night every time. And I think that's maybe one of the things that I hear the most from other improvisers is just, I want more opportunities to do it. And so often it's like, okay, how are we all gotta go to Seattle or LA or, somewhere and like try and get into their circuits as well. And maybe that's just part of the problem of being in a smaller city like Portland, but certainly if there were more places to do it, I think people would be happier about that kind of thing. What would you like to say to people who want to be better allies and friends? All right. I think as a trans woman, one of the things that I think other trans women and other trans people and queer people tend to feel is a little bit ostracized in their spaces. You generally look differently. There's an alternative look that tends to come with some queer and non-binary presenting people. And I think for people who don't identify as that group, sometimes there's a sense of like, there's almost like a standoffishness, and sometimes that's their own prejudice, sometimes that's them just being an awkward human and being like, I don't know how to interact with them and I want to interact with them in a nice way, but I don't know how, so instead I'm just going to hang back and just not interact. And there's been so many times where in different spaces I have found myself wanting to connect with people, and I had to do that legwork. I had to step up and introduce myself, be friendly, kind of help bring those barriers down so that they didn't feel like that I was threatening or that I was so different from them. And so I think That's a big thing that allies and friends can do, is just sort of welcome you into the space, be friendly, help you be a larger part of it. I know that that's what I do whenever I see somebody who's new to our theater or in a comedy space, is just sort of introduce myself, try and chat with them, make sure that they feel welcome, or that at least I, in the sea of other people, am a welcome person. And then I think it's also a big tenet of improv is about setting each other up for success. And I think that that leads in from the previous statement of just being opening. You want to open yourself up for these other people to feel like they can find success with you there. And I think for marginalized people or queer people or people who often feel like they're not part of the larger group, giving them space on stage, helping them feel successful and stuff, can just like do a lot. I mean, it changed my life seeing trans and queer people do stand-up, and it told me I could do that. It would just also be helpful for, I think, allies to show, like, you're also welcome here. Are there specific times you have been placed at a creative disadvantage because of who you are? You know, I think that there is a spectrum in terms of trans identity, and each person is on their own path and trying to actualize who they are and what they want to be. And I think for some trans women, for instance, they tend to go towards this level of femininity that they're trying to obtain. And I know for myself, one of the things that ends up happening is a lot to do with, I think, sometimes my presentation, but also sometimes my voice. Like, my voice, maybe I don't personally feel like it's as feminine as it could be. And I used to do voice acting before any stand-up, any improv, and I learned how to do a lot of, like, more masculine voices. And I think that there are times when I walk out on stage and I do a voice and, it's like an Irish voice or it's a British voice or, an Australian accent. And sometimes I think that the person on stage hears that and goes, "You're a man." And it's such a hard situation when you're in that thing, because you want to come out and you want to just roll with the punches, and yet at the same time it feels like despite your presentation, despite what you're doing, you're being categorized in this one particular spot. And I think that there could be more done in the back rooms to do check-ins, to talk about boundaries, to see what types of characters this person wants to play. I've certainly even heard from, like, cisgendered women that they want to play more masculine roles, and they themselves walk out on stage and try to take on this role, and then someone's like, "You're a woman," and it's like, I was trying so hard to not be a woman. So I think those types of check-ins would be helpful, and just understanding what each person's trying to accomplish and how can we best help them accomplish that while they're on stage and also make them feel comfortable.